Hey guys, Chad here with Apex Reviews. Today we're doing a 25,000 mile update video on our Ram 1500 Bighorn. Now this is our personal vehicle. We've had the truck for about a year and a half and it's clocked just under 25,000 miles. And this will be strictly a pros, cons, kind of general impressions video based on our ownership of the truck over the past year and a half. Now if you're looking for the full review video, the link to that video will be in the description box below. And you guys can take a look at that if you're really looking for the full detailed review on this. So we'll take a look at the exterior of the truck. We live in Michigan, so we get road salt in the winter, and the roads themselves are just, they're average, maybe a little less than average in terms of quality, so you will get some things thrown at you. But overall, the exterior of the truck has held out well. We have added a few things to help with that, and I'll go through that here in just a bit. But as you walk around, you can see the truck is doing good paint-wise. And then if you look at the driver's seat, there is minimal wear getting in and out of the car. So the main use here is obviously by the driver. And the actual primary driver to this truck is my fiance. She's about 120, 130 pounds, and she's a car nut just like I am, so it's pretty cool. And I drive the 4Runner, so if you're a heavier set person, you might see a little bit of wear on that thigh bolster, but overall, everything seems to be wearing quite nicely. So first we'll jump into the pros on this truck. So first off, really it comes down to the ride quality and the driving dynamics. This truck rides really, really well. Part of that has to do with the coil springs in the rear versus your traditional leaf springs that most trucks have. So it's kind of an oddity in the market, and I can kind of show you what that looks like underneath. So right there are coil springs under there, and more coil springs. So you can see we do have a little bit of surface rust there on the pumpkin, and it's really just attributed to Michigan. I mean, you can look at brand new cars in the lot and they're going to have potentially a little bit of rust there, so it's just par for the course living where we live. But those springs are essentially the same thing that's in my 4Runner, in a pickup, so it results in a nicer ride quality. You don't really get the kind of bucking or kind of the kickback that you get in a traditional leaf spring truck, but it does result in a little more squat when you put stuff in the bed. So if that's a problem for you and you're really using that payload capacity, you can put airbags, essentially. They're like little things. I think Firestone makes them, but there's a few different brands, and those go inside the coils to really help support the coils while there's a heavy load on them. But essentially, if you're just using this truck day to day and you're not putting a ton in that bed, it really is just a phenomenal system in terms of ride quality. And even so, it's not like the truck squats and you put 400 pounds back there, but if you're putting 1,000 or 1,100, really tapping out that payload capacity, it might be something to look at. And then our second pro on this is really the power. The truck has the optional 5.7 liter Hemi V8. This one does not have the belt start generator, or the e-torque engine, rather. So this is just your typical V8 engine, and it does have the optional 392 gear set. So that's the max towing gear set, so it allows you to tow more. But also in your day-to-day, it gives you a little bit more power to work with. The gearing is just a little bit more optimized for really acceleration, not top end, but it also does result in some fuel economy loss with that gear set. So that'll actually lead into one of the cons, but it's kind of par for the course with the truck. But we'll get to that when we get there. And then the third pro on this is really headlight visibility. At first, the headlights were terrible from the factory, but with the level, it really made a world of difference. The truck does have the optional LED Ram headlights, so these are about $1,000 option. They are not the ones that rotate left to right with your wheel. They strictly are just LED bulbs, and it is both the fog lights and the main beams that are LED. Now, I said headlight visibility was good, and why is that? Well, when we leveled the truck, it really made a world of difference in terms of really where that headlight is pointing out in the horizon, and the truck now is just phenomenal lighting. Now I know what you're thinking now is, okay, well, yeah, you're blinding the drivers. Well, we're not actually. She's driven the truck now 23,000 miles with the level on, and she's never once been brighted. And even when I've crossed her, coming home, if she was leaving and I'm coming, I've seen the truck and it's not at all bright. Even when I'm driving in the car, it's somehow, I don't know how they do it with these LED bulbs or if it's just the housing, but the cutoff just does not interfere with the drivers, but you also get great coverage down the road. Just keep in mind that does require a level. It does not do well from the factory. They're pointed way too low. So, and then in terms of additions real quick, just so you guys know what's non-factory, there is the leveling kit, and there are these, I think they're 275, 265. Let's see what size tires they are. So we have 275, 65 R20 BF Goodrich all-terrain TA KO2s, mounted on the factory optional 20-inch Bighorn rims. And I think when you guys saw it first, that was all the changes really were. I lied, the backup, the bed lights in the back of the truck were switched out to be LED, because the factory ones were incandescent, which looked very odd when the backup LED taillights were white LEDs and the bed had incandescent. So to bring some consistency there, I swapped those out with diode dynamics bulbs. But since then, we have added the tonneau cover, the carbon exhaust, bed mat, rubber bed mat, the liners inside the truck, window tint, and these wheel well liners. So first, I guess I'll get my discussion going on these liners. And really, when you look at them, these are the factory FCA liners that we had to add in. And if you buy the truck new, it's about a $200 option. And in my opinion, with the cost of trucks nowadays, I just feel like it's something that should come with the truck, especially in the northern climates. And not just for aesthetics. I mean, it looks kind of cheap, I guess, when you look through it and you see the white painted frame through the wheel well from the factory, or whatever color you have. But also, really, for their rust warranty. I mean, it's if you look at like the previous generation GM Sierra and Silverado trucks, a lot of them are rusting out right here, right at the top of the bed, the arch there, and their wheel well right there at the top. And it's like they're all doing it. And mind you, they're past their factory warranty, but just in terms of long-term impressions of trucks, when everyone's looking at these Sierras and Silverados and they're rusting out right there, GM could have just put in, some liners and really kept that road salt out of there. And the fact that, they're just cheap, flimsy liners. There's nothing but maybe $15, $20 to FCA's cost on that. And they make a ton of money when they sell them for $200. But it just seems like something that they should have on the truck from the factory. So I'd say that's actually one con. We've added it. I know you can pay for it from the factory, but it's kind of a nickel and dime scenario, in my opinion, when they charge $200 for just a cheap piece of plastic that should be there. And we'll look at the tonneau cover. This is the Low Pro tonneau cover by Truxedo. Sits nice and low with the bed. It's not sticking up over. And then when I open up the bed here, you'll see. So it opens up pretty easily. Just got a rubber mat in there. We don't use the bed too often, but this one works quite well. And then this is quite easy. You just press this on both sides. Actually, on just the one side, it lifts up the top, and then you would just roll this all the way up to the front of the bed. It's just got Velcro, and then there's some straps down at the end that you can use to go ahead and clip it down. But once you get to the end, you just get here, if I put it on right, just like that, click down, and you're all set. And then, as I discussed, we did add the carbon exhaust. So the truck's somewhat warm now, so I can give it a start as it sits. And before we get there, though, I'll include the cold start video so you guys get an idea of really how loud the truck is at cold start compared to... And now now we're going to take a look at the moderately warm start on the truck outdoors. Alright, now the carbon exhaust is a stainless steel exhaust. It's, I think, T304, if I believe, or T304, so that's the one that's... Per the table, you'll see that the T304 is actually the better of the two main stainless steels used in exhausts. Now, if you pause the video, you can take a look at some of the qualities between the two, but with the rusting problem that I'll mention here, I do question Carvin's use of T304 throughout the full exhaust. Based on the pitting that I'm explaining, it seems like I shouldn't see that with the T304. So you can see the pitting there on the exterior. I have done everything to try to prevent this from rusting. Everything, and it still does it. So this is strictly a carbon exhaust problem. This is not a FCA problem. So Carvin, if you end up watching this video, the exhaust is great. It sounds great. Everything's phenomenal with it. But in the northern climates where we get salt, I mean, it just rusts terribly on the tip. So if you guys can offer anything to really help with that, I mean, it'd be appreciated. And this tip looks great in comparison to how it normally looks, because I actually just finished detailing this truck completely with Iron X and clay bar and wax and everything. So I'll also discuss as to why that took place, but the tips were also clean. I didn't clean them all the way in, obviously, but in general, the tips look like this all the way out here if I just let them go too long. So it's just kind of a flaw in Carvin's system. Has nothing to really do with the truck, but I wanted to note that in case anyone's looking at the Carvin exhaust. And that's essentially it for the exterior. So now let's discuss some of the cons. First off, one of the things here, and this is really applicable to most white cars, but we've had it happen with both of our bright white FCA vehicles. So this one is obviously the bright white Ram, but we also had a bright white Charger Scat Pack as well. And I had issues with rail dust or iron contamination on the exterior of the paint. So I'll include some photos here to kind of show you what that looks like when I first started doing the detailing on the truck. And what you see there are essentially orange spots in the paint caused by either iron from the tracks, the rail, if these were transported on rail, which they're not. But like the Charger is transported on rail, so the rail, when they're just going, fling up iron and metal contaminants onto the clear coat of the paint, and that contaminant is on the exterior of the surface, you know, getting hit by environmental things such as rain, air, everything, and then that's causing rust, so it turns into orange speckles. And with this truck, you get it from just general driving. The road, as you're driving, you're flinging up metals and other contaminants, but also from your brakes. When you hit the brakes, the iron or carbon from the pads ends up shooting up onto your clear coat, and that causes more contamination. So every car gets some form of iron, or this rail dust, or this iron contamination on the paint, but it's just really pronounced on a white car. So the truck had it quite badly, along with some tar. So as I walked through earlier, I mean, you can see the paint is just totally clear here now. So it does clean up very nicely. And it's just a temporary thing. So if you guys have it on your truck, don't worry about it. It'll come off. But we use Iron X. It completely strips the truck, gets rid of everything, and does a great job. But mind you, when you use Iron X, you really should seal the truck directly after. So yesterday was a wash, dry, Iron X, scrub, not scrub, but wipe down, dry, wax, wipe off. I mean, it was a full day process to get the truck to where it's at today, but overall it does fine. But just bear that in mind. If you get a bright white truck, you are going to have to deal with that iron contamination. Even in perhaps a southern state, just when the truck was transported, or even when you're driving, it doesn't have to be salty roads. It's just kind of a fact of life with a white car that's something that you're going to have to deal with. I'm looking at paint here. You can see kind of a couple stone chips on the front of the truck, and that's just kind of from driving the truck, living day-to-day life. It's just stuff that happens. And our only other comment to really have would be, and it's just something I want everyone to be aware of if you're looking at this truck, the fuel economy with this setup, with the 5.7, this level, these tires, and that 392 gearing isn't so hot. And we expected that, but I want you to be aware so you're not kind of caught off guard if you were expecting some of those claim numbers that are out there. So the speedometer is off by 4 miles per hour at 70. So at a slower speed, it's off by a smaller degree. So perhaps 2 miles an hour at 40. When she's on the expressway, she drives 70 indicated on the speedometer. So 74 on true speed, and the speed limit on our expressway is 75. So she's actually going 1 mile per hour under the speed limit. And she's getting calculated, not just on the tach. So obviously the cluster is going off the indicated speed, not the actual speed, but truly calculated. She gets about 13.5 miles per gallon on this truck as it sits. So just keep that in mind. If you want this setup, but you don't necessarily care about the power as much, just go with like the 321 gears. You'll probably gain, 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles per gallon. But just the biggest hit, she said, really came from the tires. The leveling kit didn't make a huge difference, but when she put these tires on, it made a big difference. And these are E-load tires, so it's a heavier tire, more sidewall, more protection, but it is just in general a heavier tire and more rotating mass for that truck to, push down the road. And then the only issue that we had with the truck, truly, as far as an issue beyond, some of these cosmetic things that I mentioned, such as the exhaust tips, the liners, and the rail dust, those are purely cosmetic exterior details for someone like us that are pretty particular about the vehicle. It really came down to the four-wheel drive switch inside the truck. So this controls your park, reverse, neutral drive, as well as your four-wheel drive selection right here. So as I start the truck, see, everything kicks on fine and still works fine. It was just a one-time issue that we had with this, but I want to kind of explain what that was. So this switch here just controls park, reverse, neutral drive, like I mentioned. It does stop at D. You can't continue to rotate it, which is nice. I think that if it did continue to rotate, it would kind of cheapen the assembly, but it has a good feel. I mean, works great. You can easily get your reverse. It's definitely something you get used to when you clear up all this space. The issue came with this pad here. So we recently moved to a new home, and there's when you back in the garage, there's kind of a steep incline if you want to back in. We pull down the driveway, and in the winter, two-wheel drive would sometimes spin. So she would just kick it into 4 high. And right here, you can see it just goes right over to 4 high. But she got home, and none of these lights were on. So even the two-wheel drive light, which she was in, was off. And we weren't entirely sure why, and she thought she could still back up because there's the anti-lock, the anti-spin rear axle. So if one tire essentially starts to detect slip, it should automatically switch power to the other tire to continue progressing whatever direction you're trying to go. Now, I don't know if this is actually something that is in the axle or if it's electronic, such as if the back left wheel is spinning, the car detects that there's no motion, it applies the back left brake, and therefore causes the back right tire to move. It's the same kind of system the Tundra uses in their truck to kind of simulate their locking rear diff. It's not truly locking, but it's a simulated locking. And I want to say that does apply here with the Ram as well, because when that light was off, the anti-spin rear axle wasn't working either. So it was just doing the one-wheel peel in the driveway. So neither of us are very happy with that. We turned the truck off, gave it a few minutes, started it back up, and everything was fine. I could back up in two-wheel drive, put it in reverse, the anti-spin rear axle worked, the other tire caught, and I backed right in. And it only happened once. It was, I think, a fluke, and it happened right around the 22,000 mile mark. But today, I mean, everything works just as it should. I think it was probably a fluke in the system, and we've never had any issues since, but it's just something that I wanted to make note of for anyone. Just so you know, I mean, truly, full candid, any issue we've ever had with the vehicle. One more pro I want to quickly add as I'm parking the truck here. The backup camera on this truck is so good. I mean, it is class leading beyond, every vehicle I've tested, I've seen. It's just so good. So I put it in reverse here. I mean, you can see how clear that is. And you actually press plus, and you can see right to where your hitch would be. And then as I back up, I mean, it is just impeccable how clear this camera is. I mean, it's really impossible to mess up what you're doing, and everything's just so clear. There's nothing that can be missed. So it's just one of those things that just in day-to-day life is really an improvement. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the 25,000 mile update video on our truck. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I'll be happy to address them as they come in. And please feel free, I'm an open book. As odd as your question may seem, or as detailed or specific as it may be, I'll be happy to answer them. I want to make sure you guys have a resource from an actual owner that can really provide those details for you. So feel free to drop them in, and I'll respond back as soon as I can. Take care, and make it a great day.